What's up guys, Roman from RNS Entertainment here with another episode of Comic History, the weekly series where we go over the iconic origins and storylines for all sorts of characters and stories. In this video we're going to be talking about the origin of Jonathan Crane, aka Scarecrow, the master of fear and iconic Batman villain, as it appears in Batman Scarecrow Year 1. This is the expanded version of Scarecrow's original origin and first appearance in the comics in World's Finest Comics number 3 in 1941, which I will probably cover in another episode as I plan on going over the Golden Age origins of multiple iconic characters in the future. This origin took the story from the original comic and added in new character backstory and development for Jonathan Crane, and was intended as a modernized version of his definitive origin. By the way, make sure to go check out my DIY cosplay prop making video where I made a custom burlap Scarecrow mask. Our story starts off with Batman in his first year of crime fighting, which among fighting and overcoming villains such as the Joker, Catwoman, Two-Face, and Hugo Strange, has largely amounted to building the right reputation. Batman's physical prowess, his martial arts training and skills as a detective, his tools and gadgets, these were all useful tools in his arsenal, but Bruce Wayne knew that the defining aspect of Batman, the thing that had allowed him to overcome any adversary, even the insane ones, was fear. For Batman to become a legend, he had to be seen as a legend, a brutal, intimidating figure that strikes suddenly from the shadows. Batman meets with Jim Gordon, who had agreed to work with him on some of the weirder crimes happening in Gotham City, and after scaring him half to death by appearing quietly in a shadow, Batman is shown pictures of the dead and horrified looking corpses of the Dean of Gotham University and his 4 regents, who somehow were scared literally to death, having simultaneous heart attacks and being found with a lone piece of straw in the center of their table. We flash back to 15 years before current time, where a young Jonathan Crane is picked on and bullied for his tall and lanky appearance, and his similarity to Legend of Sleepy Hollow character Ichabod Crane, though it is noted that due to his long limbs, he was deceptively fast and coordinated. 5 years later, Crane, who had become increasingly bookish and lonely, is perpetually tormented by a popular classmate named Beau Griggs and his girlfriend Sherry Squires. Crane pretends not to be bothered but is secretly tormented with anger and self-loathing, having an outburst of anger which scares several birds away, admitting that he's exactly what his bullies call him, a scarecrow, only able to scare weak little things. Crane finally decides to read the book that his namesake derives from, and is disappointed that the character is a bookish loner just like him, but is then impressed at how he manages to use his gangly appearance as a plus on the dance floor. Crane is inspired and immediately runs to a nearby cornfield where he performs wild spinning kick motions for hours, which fills him with new confidence and quickly turns violent as he kicks the head off of a scarecrow, deciding to combine his new violent dancing with a serious study into the martial arts, with a focus on the Crane style of kung fu. Crane continues to read in Sleepy Hollow, following the story with increasing terror as the Headless Horseman chases Ichabod Crane down the road, understanding why his namesake would flee from such a supernatural creature, knowing in his heart that he would have fled as well. When the Headless Horseman turns out to be Ichabod Crane's own personal bully, and his hero and namesake had been revealed as a coward, Crane throws the book in anger and vows that in his story, the Scarecrow would win at the end, and that the last laugh would be his. 4 years later, Jonathan asks his crush and former tormentor, Sherry Squires, out to a Halloween party following her apparent breakup with Beau, and to his shock, she says yes. And even more to his shock, she leads him down into the basement alone, telling him to kiss her while a pumpkin head appears in the darkness. He leans in to kiss her, feeling like he had gained everything he ever wanted, when suddenly a figure with a pumpkin mask jumps out and shrieks at him, causing him to flee in terror as Beau chases him from the house, throwing the pumpkin at him and hitting him in the back of the head as the whole party laughs at him and makes jokes at his expense, with Sherry's mocking the loudest. Crane once again vows to conquer his fear and retreats back to his books, where he first reads of the Scarecrow and the Wizard of Oz, noting that he was nothing like this Scarecrow, as his brain was his main advantage. He then embarks on a study of psychology focused entirely on understanding fear, and at the night of their senior prom, Crane sneaks away, donning a Scarecrow costume and stalking Beau and Sherry, waiting 10 minutes after they had parked and then dropping exploding cherry bombs and then smoke bombs, leaping onto the windshield and brandishing a gun, which in reality was only a water pistol, but in the smoke and confusion was his first instrument of true fear. Scarecrow laughs from a tree while they flee in terror, the big strong bullies reduced to nothing more than birds, and Crane later learns that their car crashed in the escape, paralyzing Beau from the waist down and killing Sherry in the crash. Crane then attends Gotham University for 4 years, where he intently devotes his time to the study of fear, and to his second passion, chemistry. 1 year before current time and in the last year of his degree, Crane envies his mentor's position as a man of study and books, but the university staff is full, and Crane knows that his options are limited to leaving Gotham and attempting to start a life elsewhere, or to find a way to replace his mentor as professor of psychology. Crane then uses his knowledge of chemistry to create his iconic fear gas, which he uses on his mentor after asking him to meet with him, looming over him as his greatest fear envelops him. Crane knows that his mentor's deepest fear is that of drowning, and uses that to goad him up to the top of the building as hallucinations of floodwaters rise up around them. Playing on his fears, Crane convinces him to jump from the top of the building, killing him and opening up his job for Crane to steal. 1 month before current time, Professor Jonathan Crane is using his class to teach the psychology of fear, ignoring all other mind states and declaring that fear is the deciding factor for all of human motivation, that the very act of existing is determined by a fear of death. He decides to prove his point by brandishing a gun to the class, shooting a vase and slicing open a student's cheek, which causes the dean and his 4 regents to unanimously decide to fire him. This moment is directly pulled from the original Golden Age Scarecrow origin, which I always thought was a great touch. Upon receiving his firing notice, Crane decides to eschew his old identity and once again become the thing his bullies had forced on him, the thing he felt himself destined to be. No longer a scared bird, but the Scarecrow, master of fear. Crane then murders the dean and his men with his fear gas, committing the murder that Gordon had contacted Batman with at the beginning of the comic. Batman quickly puts together that Jonathan Crane is behind the murders and breaks into his apartment to find it full of empty bookshelves, showing that the murders were premeditated and that Crane had left before he even killed them. Batman's foot hits a tripwire and triggers a Scarecrow to suddenly lunge at him shrieking, startling Batman into leaping at it with a kick, breaking it and wondering what its purpose was other than to momentarily frighten. Fear gas then shoots out of his head and Batman is immediately reduced to a fetal position, crying and freaking out as his parents' murder plays out repeatedly in front of him. The hammer on the killer's gun clicks repeatedly and Batman realizes that it's actually the sound of a bomb rigged to explode, and just manages to leap out of the window before Scarecrow's trap destroys the apartment. The fear gas wears off and Batman realizes that he has just found an enemy that employs the same tactic he does: fear. Knowing that he himself is not immune to fear, he knows he has to level the playing field and retake the darkness for himself. Batman develops a filter for the nose of his mask and then finds an article in the ashes of Scarecrow's apartment on the influx of chemical companies in Gotham. We see Scarecrow approach James Fontana, the owner of the original chemical company, and uses his research on the man and his failing finances to try and get him to hire Scarecrow to scare his competitors out of town. This would net Scarecrow 10 grand and be the start to his new career as a professional criminal. Fontana initially doesn't believe Scarecrow, but Scarecrow doses him with a diluted form of his fear gas, causing Fontana's claustrophobia to make the room appear to close in around him, telling him that he'll offer his competitors the full dose. Fontana, shaking in terror on the floor, agrees to hire him, and Scarecrow returns to his new hideout and, very proud of himself, scares his pet crow, celebrating the start to his new criminal endeavor. We then see Gordon telling Batman of another man murdered by a heart attack, just like the Dean and his men, with another piece of straw left as a calling card on the scene. Batman realizes that this man was the head of Alchem Corp, one of the new chemical companies in Gotham, and knows that there are 3 remaining company heads to protect. Scarecrow scares the remaining 3 company heads out of Gotham using the news of their competitor's death and an anonymous phone call threatening them, and sets his sights on the home of one of them, creeping into his bedroom planning to use his fear of snakes to commit yet another murder. Suddenly, Batman leaps up from the bed, scaring the hell out of the Scarecrow and calling him by his real name, which throws Scarecrow into a panic, asking who Batman is, and says he's fear itself, though Scarecrow says that he's nothing but another bully, firing his gun and missing before getting it knocked out of his hands by a batarang. Scarecrow leaps out of the window and breaks out into a dead sprint, terrified and bolting into the night, with Batman attempting to chase him down. He flees into the city with his deceptive speed and constant darting into the shadows, running Batman ragged and exhausted, forcing him to continually find higher ground to not lose track of his target. Chasing him 5 miles to the outskirts of Gotham, Batman tracks Scarecrow to a cornfield next to his current base, which Batman crashes into, saying, "It's over, Crane." Scarecrow leaps out of a stack of books and shoots Batman with fear gas, but Batman simply smiles at him and says, "Boo," tackling him through the wall and being launched by Scarecrow's legs. The Scarecrow rants about how he doesn't need a gun or even his fear gas when he can resort to his quote-unquote violent dancing style of fighting, again calling Batman a bully as Batman realizes that he is completely insane. Scarecrow taunts Batman as they fight, landing a quick succession of blows before Batman uppercuts him in the face, landing on an actual Scarecrow and crashing to the ground. Scarecrow grabs the piece of wood from the actual Scarecrow and swings wildly at Batman, saying that Crane is dead, that he is the Scarecrow, and Batman tells him that he is the Batman and to fear him, beating Scarecrow down and locking him away in Arkham Asylum, in a cell right between Two-Face and the Joker. Batman reflects on the villains accruing in Arkham, and that between the madness, fear, and laughter, it scares him. And this wraps up the origin of Scarecrow. He's an iconic Batman villain and classic member of his rogues gallery. Has had multiple appearances in a number of adaptations between animated series, movies, and video games, and is a great adversary for Batman in that they both utilize fear as a weapon. Again, make sure to go check out my DIY cosplay prop making video on how I made a custom Scarecrow mask. It's one of the first videos in my cosplay prop making series, and it turned out really good. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and check out the Comic History playlist on the channel where you can find every episode of Comic History. If there's a storyline, character, or origin you'd like to see an episode of Comic History on, go check out our Patreon and donate at patreon.com/rnsentertainment. One of the donation rewards is to commission any story you want, both helping the channel grow and getting content specifically for you. Make sure to go follow me on Twitter at Roman_RNS, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our gaming channel RNS Gaming, and I'll see you guys next time.